Thank you for attending this. So you're all pumped up to advance your career in EDA or hardware? Great. Let's get started. So today, hardware and EDA play essential role in enabling digital life. The products are highly complex. It's not like any other industry, right? And it is used by billions and billions of people. And managing these products take really lot of effort and skill to go through discovery, development, launch, and evolution of the next generation product. So today we will cover an overview of what it takes to discover, develop, manage, and market these hardware and EDA products. If you thought that was a daunting thing to do, we'll try to simplify a little bit today. Are you ready for it? Yeah, that's what I thought. So before I go into the detail, let me tell you something about myself. Vikas did introduce me, but let me tell you a little bit more background so that you get to understand me better and we will have an easier time going forward. I appreciate my life. Coming from a humble background, I am the founder and CEO of Quantum Vision Consulting, a company I formed for the professionals like you. I'm also a certified coach, speaker, and a trainer from John Maxwell team, a world's leading management institute. I've also worked in high-tech industry like EDA and hardware industry with Texas Instruments, Synopsys, Cadence, and many startups, including Real Intent, where I worked with Vikas. I have risen to high levels of management in these companies. I was vice president of Real Intent for many years. I have done my MBA from Berkeley, one of the premier institutes, business schools, called Haas School of Business. I'm also very active in Toastmasters. I don't know if you know about Toastmasters. It is an international organization, non-profit organization, dedicated to improvement in public speaking. I have risen all the way to what's called Distinguished Toastmaster Award, which I got many years ago. DTM is the highest award that Toastmaster International awards for the public speaking. I have spoken world over, US, Europe, India, Asia. And this is one of the pictures from the talk that I gave at DBCon, sorry, not DBCon, the SNUG in Synopsys Lab 2 years ago. I have also been, let me speed it up a little bit here because I think I have to manage time. I've been a block leader of City of Cupertino. I was a city appointed community officer. I was basically trying to build community around my neighborhood, and I was the leader of the community in Cupertino for many years. I'm also a PMP, the Project Management Professional. That's a certification given for program management and product management, project management. I've also done some charity work. I have been involved with what's called India Literacy Project, which does some good work in India for the education of underprivileged people. This is really a picture from one of the relay race they do. Very interesting. It's a 24-hour relay race where we walk and hike all day, all night in a group to raise funds for Indian Literacy Project. I'm also a proud owner of Tesla Model 3. I'm one of the first recipients of Tesla Model 3 when it was released in 2018. I have been to great places for vacation, and one of the latest memorable place was Istanbul, where I visited with my wife 2 years ago, just before coronavirus hit. I'm one of the person who has also climbed over the Berlin Wall. How many of you remember Berlin Wall? It doesn't exist anymore. And for your generation, probably you didn't even know it existed. But I climbed over the Berlin Wall when it existed back in 1986 December. And we crossed over even to the East Berlin side. And remember, this was the time of Cold War, where there was a lot of tension between East and West. So it was really, really interesting. And I have had more than 20 publications in my life, including papers and technical articles and so on. So I hope that gives you a little bit idea about who I am. But my life has not been a bed of roses. I struggled growing up. At the age of 11, I had to leave my parents to go do studies beyond elementary school, primary school, as they call it in India. Because there was no school beyond 5th standard in the place where my father worked as mining engineer. It was a really painful experience to leave parents behind, friends behind, my 2 adorable sisters behind, to go for studies far away. When I was 14-year-old, I was traveling in a train and my luggage was broken. Everything was taken. And I didn't even have money to pay for my food. So the only money I had left was on the pocket. And either I could eat or I could have money for the transportation from station to home. I decided to have the money for transportation and I went hungry for next 24 hours. When I went to college, I struggled because I had done my high schooling in Hindi medium. How many of you have really done your high schools in medium other than English? You would know the struggle that you would face when you go to college completely in a different medium in South India. But I struggled and I managed. The worst experience was when after doing my master's, when I joined high-tech industry, I decided to take a risk to join a startup. The startup which was promised to do a lot of great work in industrial automation. I thought that will be a cool thing to do, but that was the worst decision because that startup really failed. And in fact, I didn't get paid for almost a year. All my savings were dried up. And I got married in that year. Imagine the ignominy that I had to go through. So I made a promise to myself. I will double down on EDA and hardware industry. That's where my core expertise existed. I came back to Texas Instruments in Bangalore, where I really expanded my team. I took up a lot of international projects, very visible global projects, and I succeeded through that. I increased my visibility through that way. One of the best things that I did as part of Texas Instruments was to do a collaboration project with University of Texas, Austin, where we took one of their best research and put it into the software that we designed for our designers, chip designers. And after doing MBA, I moved from engineering management to product management, marketing, and business development. And life has never been the same again. I hope that, so basically in summary, my life has not been a bed of roses, and I struggled. I changed a few things and I succeeded. So today, we will cover some market overview of what we are the market that we are talking about, the electronics market, the semiconductor market, hardware market. I'll give you a little bit overview of that. And then we will go into the different roles, like product management role, what does it entail? Then I will walk you through product management framework as I have defined, and it's available in many literatures. And we will go through each of the components of that framework so that you get the really, really in-depth knowledge of product management. And then we'll wrap it up. So most of the time I'll spend is on product management framework. As Vikas said, if you have any question, do write it down in the chat window and we will try to answer them at the end of the talk if there is time available, or we'll be in touch with you offline. So let's get to the market overview. What is this electronics market about, or hardware market about? So first of all, as you know, the market is really growing at a really rapid rate. This technology, this whole internet, digital life, IoT, and systems, smartphones, all of these things have really exploded in the last decade. Here are some stats to give you some idea of how the market is growing. Did you know that world's internet penetration rate is only 59%? You would think that we are all living in internet, but there is so much more to do in internet penetration. Many countries don't even have the right level of internet. Even in India, in the rural parts, there is a lot of scope to expand internet, but it's growing. There are 4.88 billion phone users in the world, and it is growing up by 100 million every year. Last year it went up by 100 million. Probably it will be a lot more next year. There's 75 billion connected devices. There will be 75 billion connected devices by 2025. And reaching the new customers is really the primary goal of most of these companies, and what is fueling this growth. By 2040, 95% of the purchases will be done online. And this is a worldwide number, not US now. And there are 3.96 billion social media users in the globe in last year. That is almost twice in the last 6 years. It has doubled in the 6 years. So these are just to give you an idea of how rapidly this market is growing, which really is enabled by EDA and hardware. Let's look at some of the market sizes. There are 3.5 billion units of personal electronic products that are sold, that were sold back in 2020 actually. Smartphone being the largest component of this sales. And it really amounts to about $500 billion of business. That's what electronics market is. Okay, so let's get into some engagement with you. Let me show a small poll, and please write down the answers for this. Okay, what do you think is the percentage of world population that owns a mobile phone today? Can you write down in chat window A, B, C, or D? What do you think? Just your guess. Doesn't matter if you don't know exactly. I'll give you 30 more seconds. Okay, looks like most people think it is D. Okay. The correct answer is C. According to technology growth statistics, 62% of the world's population owns a mobile phone. So you can see the potential. Okay, that was the electronics market as a whole. Now semiconductor really fuels that electronics. So what is the semiconductor market? Semiconductor market is about $50 billion. And it's growing rapidly, as you can see. The percentage growth is almost like 20% every year. And most of the semiconductor is really driven by networking and data processing. Data processing includes anything to do with processing, including smartphone application processor that goes under smartphone, or GPU, the graphics processors that go. Networking and data processing are the top two dominant drivers of semiconductor revenues in the market. Now, EDA is the one that fuels semiconductor. So what is EDA market? So we went from electronics market to semiconductor market to EDA market. EDA market is about $11 billion. In 2021, it was about $11.5 billion. But it is expected to grow at the rate of about 8% per year. By 2027, it is expected to be $20 billion. Without EDA, there is going to be no semiconductor chips going out. This is the jewel crown of the semiconductor industry. So what is special about this hardware and EDA? As we saw from the statistics so far, there are billions of users, essential to enabling digital life. The billions of parts inside the semiconductor. The products are really complex. It requires really complex software to design, to manufacture, very complex equipments to manufacture, and billions in cost. And one of the major contributor of the cost is skills of the people like you who is there in the industry. It is so hard to have the right skill set to develop this kind of complex products. If you really go to semiconductor industry and ask the HR what is their biggest challenge, and they'll say hiring. They're not getting enough skill set to hire, people with the right skill set to hire. So you are all in a very good place. Okay, let's do another poll here, just for you to get engaged. How many searches did Google get in 2020? 500 billion, 1 trillion, 2 trillion, more than 2 trillion. A, B, C, D. Please write down your guess. I'll give you 30 seconds. Great. Most people said D, some are saying C, right? Actually, D is right. Google got 2.5 trillion searches in 2020. Okay, now that we talked about the market overview of overall electronics and semiconductor and EDA, let's get into the next part of the agenda, which is the product management role. What does the role entail? And then I'll go into the framework, as I mentioned. So first of all, the role of product management or marketing are determined also by the product life cycle. They cover all of the product life cycle. It's not the role is about when the product is just an introduction phase. Every product goes through a specific cycle. First, it gets introduced, where it may be very few customers that are using, early adopters. Then it goes into growth phase, where it is really growing rapidly and the users are really rising and it's really maturing very well. And then it gets into maturity phase, where the usage really kind of levels off. And then it goes into decline phase, where maybe there is a need for new technology or next generation products. So this is a typical product life cycle. There are many examples of this in industry. For example, say if you take a smartphone, BlackBerry went through introduction phase, huge growth phase back in 90s, and then it went to the maturity phase and then it declined. Do you even remember BlackBerry? Maybe a lot of you don't even know what BlackBerry is. Then Motorola Razr phone, I mean, it was the thing of 90s. It went through a great growth phase, like rapid growth. It matured, and today we don't even know what Razr is. Likewise, in the workstation, there was the workstation that I started working first with is called Apollo, and it had its own OS called Domain OS. It was one of the fantastic machine to work with, that is most advanced at that time. We did a lot of electronic design using Apollo. All of our chip design used to be done using Apollo at that time. That was in early 90s, late 80s. Went through rapid growth, but then came Unix, and the Sun workstation became really the thing to have. So the Apollo went through decline, and Sun workstation started coming into growth phase. So every industry and every product goes through this cycle. If you take EDA, for example, cycle-based simulation. Cycle-based simulation was the thing back in 80s, 90s, and it really didn't live up to its promise. We don't see cycle-based simulator today, do we? In fact, Synopsys had a tool called Cyclone, which was introduced in 90s. And it went through some growth phase, but it declined very quickly. Because technologies sometimes don't really work up to its promise, right? Because cycle-based simulation is about with single synchronous clock. That's all it can support. And how many designs are done with single synchronous clocks, right? So design techniques evolved very rapidly. And sometimes this product lifecycle is also enforced by mergers and acquisitions. For example, there was a company called Quad, which has a great STA, static timing analysis tool called Motive. And Synopsys acquired it and killed it in favor of their own tool that they were developing. It's called Primetime at that time. Now, of course, Primetime is in mature phase itself. Likewise, Simplex, there was a company called Simplex that Cadence acquired. Simplex had a great LBS tool or parasitic extraction tool called Fire and Ice. It really had through solid growth, and that's why Cadence bought it. But they ultimately retired it in favor of their own physical verification tool called PVS. There are many examples. So every product goes through this phase, and the role of the product management changes based on the phase of the cycle. So there are three specific roles which are interrelated with each other. Product manager is really the very strategic role that really takes the product from the concept stage all the way to the launch, and in fact post-launch product management as well. Product marketing is involved more with making the product really visible outside in the market, enabling the sales, and so on. And market communication is about branding, collateral, data sheets, and so on. They are interrelated, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what the interrelation is between these roles. But one thing to note is, whereas in most industry, product management is a very distinct individual role, separate from product marketing, in EDA, the product manager role is really shared between R&D manager, products R&D manager, and product marketing. They don't have a separate product manager in EDA. But in semiconductor, they have product manager, and any electronics company, you'll have product managers. For example, in Samsung, you'll have a product manager for Galaxy for smartphone line, or Qualcomm will have a product manager for its application processor for specific market segment, and so on. But in EDA, it's shared between product marketing and R&D manager. So how does this interaction evolves? If you are a very small startup company, then you have just one product manager which does everything: product marketing, product management, market communication, everything is done. A startup can't afford to have multiple people. If as the company grows a little bit, then there is a dominant role of product management, but there is also a product marketing function that is created that is really limited to messaging and launch. It's more like market communication. But when really there are a lot more products, then and the company is mid-size, then there is a true partnership between product manager and product marketing. And in EDA case, it is between R&D manager and product marketer. And for very large organizations, they may have even a business product manager, and then we'll have a product manager and a marketing guys reporting to the business. So there are different flavors of this interaction, and depending on the size of industry and the type of industry, you may find different type of interactions. But we will focus on product management today. So product management is really a strategic and business-oriented role that is focused on delivering solutions to customer and market needs. It has got both an internal component, inbound component, and an outbound component. Outbound component is being the voice of the company, really being the champion of the company to the customers, to announce the right things to the customer, to understand customer concerns, and so on. That's going out of the company. Whenever this new thing gets announced, they need to explain what is exactly this is about and why should the external world care about that announcement. And there is inbound role where they have to be talking to the customer on a continuous basis and bring the input back to the organization, synthesize the inputs, and guide the management, guide the development, and or guide the market communication. So here are some tips for becoming a product manager. On the left side is what you should avoid. On the right side is what you should really focus on. A lot of product managers, so let me tell you that a lot of product managers come from very technical background. They were probably R&D developers or R&D leads. And when they become product manager, they sometimes can't let go of few things. One of the key things they don't let go of being hands-on troubleshooter. That's what they've been doing whole life. So they really try to do hands-on troubleshooting for the products and doing problem solving because they take pride in that. They think that that's their expertise. But once you become product manager, you have to let others do the troubleshooting. You have to be enabler, not the doer. Because then you'll be stepping on the toes of other organizations. So don't have narrow practical functional perspective. Don't be hands-on troubleshooter. Don't have competitive attitude towards peer functions, because this is about collaboration. Product managers enable collaboration. It's 1 + 1 = 3. And build the depth in your own expertise. That's another thing that happens. That either you come from R&D side or you come from external side. And then if you come externally, you probably don't have technical expertise of the product that you're managing. And they remain that way without really trying to understand some more depth about the product. And that is not going to take you very far as a product manager. You got to build depth in your own product area. You should be able to talk more smartly, intelligently, understand why product does this the way that it does. Why is that feature useful, valuable to customer? So you need to add on broad strategic view. You have to not think only about what is going to happen to the product in next
2 months. You have to think about year, 2 years from now, how the product is going to look like. You have to coach others, you have to appreciate contribution, and have working knowledge of the functional areas. Okay? And I'm speaking this from my own experience, because when I went from R&D lead to the product management side, I spent a lot of time. I used to do the troubleshooting myself, and later on I learned that that's not really the right thing to do, because now the roles have changed, and there is an R&D guy who is ready to step in to do the troubleshooting. So here are some 7 habits of highly successful product managers we have compiled, and it is more for your reference. First, become an expert. Get to know your product, your customer, your market, your competition. Second is become an owner. You got to own it. As a product manager, you own the products and all its issues that goes with it. Can't say, okay, that's not my job. Everything to do with the product is your job. Third is being persuasive. This is about collaboration. There's a lot of intergroup coordination. You have to really get help from several types of groups. That's where you have to be persuasive. Become an engineer. As I said, be curious about the product. As if you were an engineer. Be positive. Be curator. Get the best ideas from your team and celebrate. And become a fearless leader. By the way, one of the product management is a very stressful role, because a lot of people are depending on you, including higher management and the team members and peer groups. So you have to be fearless leader. You can't really cave in or be very thin-skinned. You have to be very thick-skinned, because you have to be able to manage the stress and be able to be assertive with all different types of organizations. Okay. There was a question about the program manager role. So program manager versus product manager is this. Program manager is more like an advisory role. It's not the line role. There is a difference between line role and staff role. Staff is advisory role, and line is like being part of the organization, being part of the product, and products revenue and all is directly tied to your deliverables or your impact. Program manager is usually an advisory role. That means it's trying to coordinate different groups and take the whole group towards a particular objective, but they don't have really the direct responsibility of the revenue or success of the product. I hope that helps. Okay, so product management framework. So here is a framework that I will explain more for each of the functions that will really go into the product management being successful. First component is market analysis, and that is probably the most important component. You have to really get the concept validated. What are we developing and why are we developing? Who is going to use it? Who is the competitor? Does our company have the right skills or not? And I'll explain all of that a little bit more in detail. And market analysis drives product development. So market analysis goes to product development, and that is all the work that is done before product launch. So second component or major component of the product management is product launch. Once the product is developed, then I'll explain you what it takes to launch a product. And once it is launched and it is already in use, it is maturing in the market, then once the product is mature and out there in the market for a long time, then you need to care about how do we really grow its market share? How do we retain customers? What else can we do in the product that will really make it more appealing for the customers? And on communication, collateral is kind of the something that goes across all the phases, because you have to communicate in every phase, and you have to create collateral in every phase. You have to manage those collateral in a very centrally organized place. People will come to you to say, hey, where is the product requirement of this product? Hey, where is it? Can I access it? And all of that should be managed by the product manager as well. So let's go into each of the, the end goal is product revenue, adoption, and customer retention. That is the goal. But you need to have you need to meet the revenue targets or exceed the revenue targets. You need to have the right level of adoption. If you thought that there will be 100 users in the next 2 years or 1 year, you got that adoption is something that you need to worry about. And also customer retention. How do we retain the customer? How do you make sure that customers are not ditching your product and going to competitor, for example, or they're developing something on their own because they don't like the product. So all of that you need to worry about. So those three are the metrics for the success of a product manager. So let's get into market analysis and product development. That's the first component of the framework. So before you do market analysis, what are we doing market analysis for? It is for a product opportunity. You need to identify the product opportunity. And how do you identify product opportunity? I'll come to the sources where you get the product opportunity from in the next slide. But first thing you need to worry about is the opportunity is basically the common subset of customer problem, company capabilities, and viability of the solution. See, there may be huge opportunity, but if it's not a customer problem, then it is not really an opportunity. But not all customer problems are opportunities. Because if company doesn't have capability to do things about that opportunity or problem, that customer problem, then that's not an opportunity. It's right. I mean, your company specializes in verification, but the customer problem is in manufacturing. Then you can't really. That's not an opportunity for you, right? And viable tech solution. There may be capability, there may be problem overlap, but if it is not viable, it may take like 6 years to complete, or it really relies on a very risky research that is not even out yet, then that's not an opportunity. Only when all of these three things are met is when you can really call it as a product opportunity. And to really assess that is one of the key functions of product management. So where do these product opportunities come from? You might think, okay, hey, as a product manager, I can't invent this product opportunities, right? Where is it coming from? So they are coming, first of all, it comes from customers. When you're talking to customers very frequently about launching a product, or anytime you talk about their satisfaction, how they're doing, their usage, or how they're using in their flows, they will tell you that, hey, there is something that this problem is still not solved for me. And you got to have really your eyes and ears open for that kind of clues from customers. The customers are the biggest source of identifying product opportunities. Then there are partners. You may be partnering with some ecosystem. So you may have your own ecosystems. You're partnering with someone to provide a joint solution. Now the partner may tell, there is an unsolved problem here, and either you can do or I can do or whatever. You guys can decide who has the right expertise. So partners are another source. Sales team. Your sales team is talking to customers. They're being in touch with customers on hourly basis or daily basis. And they will tell you that, hey, my customer has been talking about this problem and, looks like it is probably unsolved. Can you guys think about some new solution? Competitors. That is a great source of product opportunity, because competitors are talking about some problem that they have not solved, or they have heard from, or they have a solution which is very weak in the market. Then that's an opportunity for you right there. if you hear from customers that a competitor tool is not so good, then that might be good place for you to think of a product. Support teams, the support teams which are really supporting customer on day-to-day basis, they're solving their problem, customers are filing say bugs or enhancements. Support teams are the ones who are on top of all of that. So that's really an opportunity that will come from. So when I was in Cadence, I launched a product called Conformal Constraint Designer. And this problem was basically that came from customers. So basically I was part of a group which created the formal verification. So that was the Verplex company, which really, the tool was called LEC, Logic Equivalence Checker. In fact, even today, I think LEC is one of the top logic equivalence checker tool in the industry. And when we talked to customers, they said, there is, you do the equivalence for the function all right, but what about the constraints, timing constraints? I've got a lot of problems. I really need to understand the equivalence as I go through the design. That gave us an idea that, okay, there is a scope for a constraints verification product. And we created something called Conformal Constraint Designer in Cadence, although I left after the launch. That's an example, right? So what you do and you do not. So you do listen to multiple different sources for identifying opportunity. Don't have a knee-jerk reaction. Just because one customer said, you jump on it and you start doing things, and you figure out that it's really not a pervasive problem, right? So you have to use multiple listening posts to triangulate. Customers, and need to validate with sales team, validate with support team, validate with R&D, validate with some industry experts, and so on. So you have to make sure that that's the right thing to go forward with. And remember that customers have a lot of alternative ways. There is nothing like, hey, there is a problem and you solve it and they're going to use it. There are so many alternatives that customers have. They have competitor tools. They have their own internal solutions that they could be relying on, or the problem may not be even big enough to use a tool. They might just use their own manual methods or review methods. Once I introduced a tool, and designer said, you know what? We do this through design reviews. We don't need a tool for this. So don't get fixated by one specific technology or solution. You got to explore. You got to make sure that you triangulate, and do understand that it is very difficult to change existing customer behavior pattern. They are very much used to do things the way they have been doing, and it is very difficult to. So you got to make sure that you understand that part. So you have to have a very compelling solution, and you have to work with customer very closely to change their behavior. So I think there was a question by Jagdish that how is troubleshooting solving by self differs from coaching. So basically it is like, see, if the problem comes, if there is really a trouble that needs to be, a problem that needs to be solved, you have to do some troubleshooting. Then instead of doing by yourself, because you know things, because you have done this in the past and you know already, you have to make sure that you involve the right folks who can grow to be the right troubleshooters. So it may be support team that can do the troubleshooting and you help them to do troubleshooting. You may be R&D guy who does the troubleshooting and you help the R&D guy to do troubleshooting. Then you have really created the right, so you raise the level of expertise of the right groups who really need to do troubleshooting. And you should not be in the bottleneck of solving problem yourself. I hope that clarifies. Okay, so once you have identified the product opportunity, you have to do market analysis. Is this really something that we should do? Market analysis starts with understanding what's called, I call it 5 C's. So if you were taking notes, you can note down those 5 C's. First C is company. Understand the company. What is this company's vision, mission? Is the opportunity that we are talking about, the product that we are talking about, is it really aligned with company's mission and vision and goals? Second C is customer. You need to understand customer segments, the profiles, personas, avatars. What are the customers' usage models before you really think that this product will be useful? Third C is collaborators. Who are our company's collaborators? Who do we collaborate with? Maybe the product opportunity you're talking about is not something that your company should do. Maybe your collaborator should do. Maybe they have the better expertise. For example, Synopsys is in collaboration with a company called ANSYS for the power voltage analysis. And so there are many opportunities that came up in Synopsys for which we thought we should not do, rather ANSYS should do that. That's a collaborator. Fourth C is competitors. You need to understand your competitors, because if say competitor has already got, many competitors have got excellent tools already out in the market in the area that you got product opportunity. Maybe that is not something that you should get into right now. Maybe you should look for the opportune time, because right away it will be another Me Too tool out there. You don't want Me Too tool. You want to have some unique selling proposition, USP for your product. And lastly, climate. Climate has to see, last C is climate. Climate has to do with environment, social environment, political environment, industrial environment. For example, right now it's a COVID time, it's pandemic time. If some product has to do with getting a lot of people together, maybe that's not the right product to work right now. Or if there is a trade embargo going on somewhere, and your product is, say your product is going to be appealing to China, and US-China trade embargo going on. That's not the right climate right now to introduce that kind of product, which is going to be useful for China, right? So those are the 5 C's: company, customers, collaborators, competitors, and climate. Once you understand this 5 C's, then you need to do opportunity analysis. And say your product concept passes through the gate of those 5 C's, then you need to do opportunity analysis. What is the opportunity, meaning revenue potential of the product? So you need to look at data, interpreting it, using analysis to determine whether you have the right skills. That's also opportunity analysis. So you need to do qualitative analysis as well as quantitative analysis. Quantitative analysis has to do with revenue potential and what will be year by year expectation of the revenue. And you have to use a lot of different models for that. You have to probably do some statistics and look at some market data and try to extrapolate based on that. And you need to do not only an extrapolation using one method, it's a multiple method, and try to arrive at the same potential. Once you have done your opportunity analysis, then you create what's called market requirements. That's what is your minimum viable product. What should be the product have to be able to succeed with customers? And market requirements will include not only features, also usability requirements, all of that at a market level that you gathered from customers. And then you have to make versus buy versus license decision. Do you really, once you've got all these requirements, can you buy this technology from somewhere else rather than developing yourself? Or can you license it from someone else instead of developing yourself? This is an analysis that management will expect you to do, and to be able to convince them that yes, you have to develop it. And lastly, you need to align, that is, with all the groups or relevant groups and management and all the thing. You need to align all this analysis and the market requirements. And it's done through MRD, which is market requirements document you create, and you create a presentation, and you do a lot of alignment meetings. Once the market analysis is done, then it goes into development phase. The development phase, they require what's called product requirements. They need to understand what product they are developing. So now you're translating the market requirement to product requirements. Product requirement will include who is this product for, who cares, what features will absolutely be necessary, what features need to be prioritized, which is a top priority feature, which is medium priority feature, which is low priority feature. And it should include what is the release criteria, like what's the main functionality you got to have before you release, what is the usability, that requirement, like should it have a graphical user interface, how the graphical user interface will look like, a reliability requirement, performance requirement, supportability. This is called FERPs, and I'm sure some of you have heard about it. FERPs, F, functionality, U, usability, or reliability, P, performance, S, supportability. These are absolutely essential components of release criteria. Because you may have a great functionality and usability, but if it takes longer to run than what is expected, then you have not met performance requirement. If it is very fast to run and functionality is very good, but usability is not so good, meaning people have to type in commands or remember command names, and it only runs in batch, not interactive, maybe that product is not good. So all of this is very important. So now you're getting into development. So product manager is going to be guiding the development piece. So making sure the product requirements are ready. Also product managers need to talk about use cases. How is the product going to be used? What are the different type of use cases? What's the buying criteria? What is the pricing and packaging and positioning? All of this thing is needed as part of the development. And I'll explain a little bit more about it in the next slides. Guiding development. Guiding development is also an important part. So because once you're given the requirement to R&D, it's not like R&D is going to develop it on in isolation. It doesn't work that way. You have to have some early adopters signed up for the product. You have to have those few set of customers who are early adopters, and they will be guiding the development. You are giving them very early code, and they're giving feedback, and you are the conduit between the development and the customer as a product manager. Early adopters are the key resources to guide the development. Other than that, many companies also have advisory councils. Like in Synopsys, we used to have a UTAB, which we used to call University Technical Advisory Board, UTAB. I'm sure Cadence also has something like that. That means they have a technical advisory board of the faculty of university, which is guiding some of the development. And it doesn't have to be university, it can also be ITAB, which is Industrial Technical and Advisory Board, where you get people from more synergistic companies, and they help drive the development. The proof points, publications, competition announcements, research, all of that also help guide the development. And influencers like big luminaries or major researchers or staff members who you really want to consult with. For example, when we were at Atlanta, we used to have good collaboration with UC Berkeley, and Professor Vincent Taylor there. He guided some of the development in the product. Likewise, in Synopsys, used to have a very, very good relationship with Richard Newton, who passed away, by the way. Richard Newton, who really guided a lot of Synopsys development. So those are influencers. Okay, I think I've talked for a long time. Let's try to get you guys to wake up a little bit. Hey, what are the top 3 semi companies globally in 2020 based on sales, do you think? A, B, C, or D? Which are the top 3 semi companies, semiconductor? Please type it in the chat window. Okay, I'm seeing D, I'm seeing B. Okay, so nobody got it right. The real answer is A. Intel, Samsung, and TSMC. Let me show you the table. Here is the table of top 10 semiconductor companies. Intel continues to be top, although Intel, the gap between number 1 and number 2 is narrowing very fast. As you can see, 2020 sales, the gap is only 7 million, only 10%, less than 10% between Intel and Samsung. That's a huge change because we grew up in 80s and 90s with Intel being very much ahead of all others. Now they are slowed down, or at least others have caught up. TSMC, SK Hynix and Micron appear in the top 10 because of the memory sales. They are the memory leaders in the world. Samsung also has a lot of memory, and SK Hynix and Micron. And you would be surprised at the sales of memory or the volume of memory being sold, right? We all use SD or micro SD and SSD and hard drives. All of that really contribute to the sales of SK Hynix and Micron, and that's why they're here. Qualcomm, Nvidia, Broadcom, they come lower in terms of sales because their volume is not as much as the memory vendors, and so on. So this is the top 10 for you. Hopefully this helps. And this changes every year. It will change. There will be some order changes. Maybe SK Hynix will go down. Broadcom. In fact, Broadcom used to be lower earlier. Now it has come up higher because it has acquired so many different companies. So now Broadcom is much higher. Okay, so that's about market analysis and product development. Now we have developed the product. Now we're ready to launch. How do we go about launching? What are the things to take into account when launching? So there are 2 aspects of launching. One is go-to-market strategy or go-to-market activities that you need to go through, and also market communication. Remember the market communication group, the third group, that is who you need to work with. So go-to-market has to do with positioning, value proposition. And I'll give you a template for positioning statement that you need to write for the product in the next slide. That is very, very important. What is this product about? What its value proposition is? Why would somebody want to buy this product? What is the value it brings to the customer and the value? And branding. You need to also worry about branding. What should be the name of the product and the logo that has to go with the product and so on. Then target customer profiles. Remember we talked about that you need to understand that first at the market analysis phase. But for the product, you need to understand who are the different types of customers who will use it. And what are the profiles? What are their personas? What are their avatars? Right? And for each of the profile, you need to have some kind of a value proposition. You need to have positioning. It may be different. Okay. Your product may be used by the students of the university. That is one profile, or it could be also by some senior designers in automotive industry. That's another profile. So you need to have the right value proposition for each of them. Lead generation. How are you going to generate leads for this product? That's what sales is looking for. There's what kind of discovery questions they need to ask to really generate interest in the product. What is the packaging, pricing of the product? And this is something that you have to do. If there is a product marketing function, then you have to do along with the product marketing function. And maybe this is something that product marketing will do working with the product manager. Packaging and pricing. what are the different tiers of the product that you will have. You'll have a base version, you'll have an advanced version, and maybe most advanced version, or whatever it is. For example, in Cadence, most of the products, and even Synopsys, most of the products have 3 tiers. So they have a base level, and then there's advanced, and then super advanced kind of thing. Then there is win-loss guidelines. You need to also tell sales how are they going to win, and in what case, how could they lose? What did they have to avoid to lose? So yeah, you have to give them very, very clear guidelines. And these are the do's and these are the don'ts for when you go with the new product. And for coming up with that, you have to do what's called SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threat. So you need to do that SWOT analysis for the product. And I'll give you one example of SWOT in the subsequent slide. And you have to do competitive analysis, because you have to also be able to counter the competition. Maybe you're introducing a new product now, maybe competitor already has something, but they may be weak in some areas. You need to compare that and be able to give the right guidance to the sales guys. And FAQ, frequently asked questions. Then we have to work with market communication to really create the right messages for the market, to write collaterals for the website, write media to generate. Maybe you need to have a video, or maybe some video interview with some customer, or you need to have some webinars. You need to have some other way of data sheets. Those are something that is required on the website, and see metrics. How are we going to measure the customer adoption? Those metrics you need to come up with, and then market communication will drive that. So as I mentioned about the product positioning, that is probably the most important piece of the product launch. You have to have a positioning statement, and usually the positioning statement template would look like something like this. It will identify a customer profile for this type of customer, or this target profile of the customer, that need. So that is the customer needs, that need this. This product is doing what? Okay, that does something, that brings what value. Unlike that brings the uniqueness of the product. Unlike other products which does, our product does this. So it is bringing uniqueness, it is bringing customer profile, it brings customers' need, it's bringing your product, what it does, and what it does uniquely. So you need to have this kind of product positioning statement for each of the products. This is a sample SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunity, threat analysis. This is so basically, say for Samsung, particularly for mobile smartphones, they did some kind of this SWOT analysis. And so basically you have to find what your strengths are, where you're good at, what people perceive you as good with. For example, Samsung's strength is low production cost, because most of the factories are owned by them, so they can maintain the low production cost. They don't subcontract to others as much as possible. They do it all by themselves. Okay. Weakness-wise, they have low profit margin. That's a weakness. Or too many products. Okay. So they lose focus. That's a weakness. And opportunity-wise, the smartphone market in India is a huge opportunity for them. Okay. Mobile advertising industry is an opportunity for them, and so on. Right. So likewise, for every product, we did, for example, every product that I launched in hardware or EDA, I did a SWOT analysis. Unfortunately, I cannot share any such real examples with you because they are proprietary. And this I was able to gather from public domain. So that's the product launch. Now, once the launch is done, when the product is mature in the market, your job is not done. You still need to worry about how do I keep growing the market share? How do I retain the customer? So the few things that you need to worry about at this phase is upsell, cross-sell, or flows. Basically, what can you upsell? So now that you're using this product in this mature phase, Mr. Customer, what if you buy this related product? This really works very well with this and gives you very much more value. So that's upselling. Or a partner product or something that is adjacent, cross-selling. Or coming up new flows. There are new ways that you can use the same product. You're not changing any functionality, just the flow that they could be using a different flow. Customer and vendor partnerships. That is that's a good way to continue the customer, the product usage. For example, I was a product manager for Primetime, and Primetime is static timing analysis tool, which is market leader. And once it reaches the mature phase, we had to go to say have some kind of a vendor customer partnership. We did a partnership with TSMC to do some advanced collaboration for their advanced nodes, and we did kind of a joint webinar with TSMC, Synopsys, and in fact Microsoft together to talk about this advanced collaboration. So that kind of is a way to continue the market share growth or have customer retention for a very mature product. SWOT analysis that you did at product launch, you have to continue doing over time, because now your strength and weaknesses may change, or opportunity and threat may change because now product is mature. Also services. Services is a great way to continue market share growth. Services meaning you provide resources to the customers to create flows or to complete their designs using your product. So that's a services revenue starts coming because product is mature. Now you can provide services. Pricing revision. You may want to also look at pricing to say you cannot command the same price when the product is mature, or you may you don't decrease price, but you add new things in the product to keep the price same. Or you may have to also review the pricing based on competition and so on. EOL stands for end of life. So you have to also think about whether the product has reached that decline stage. And in the decline stage, you have to start a process called end of life process. End of life is now you want to retire the product, and maybe you want to replace it by some next generation product. And that retirement also is a specific process you need to follow, because many customers may be using your product. So you cannot just retire overnight. It has to be 2 to 3 year process to end of life a product. Because that's also part of licensing agreement, that once the customer gets a new version, you have to ensure that you would support them for next 3 years, 2 to 3 years. Normally that's the licensing agreement. So end of life has to be honoring all of that. And customer satisfaction. Always gathering customer satisfaction with a mature product is absolutely important, because now it's mature. Now is customer really continuing to be happy? Are they getting a little bit unhappy with few of the features, or some features are falling behind compared to their needs? That's what you need to gather that information from customers on an ongoing basis. This is where customer surveys are absolutely important at this phase. Competitive tracking and strategy. You need to track the customers at a mature phase, because now competitors are introducing also new products, and how is your product really faring with theirs on an ongoing basis, particularly in mature phase. That's very important. Other thing that is important in this mature phase is customer education and support. Right? You have to have very good customer education materials for ongoing use by the customers, and also deliver positive experience with customer service. Because if the product is mature and your service is not so good, your product will decline faster. Let me tell you that. Service has to be top-notch quality. And the last part of the framework is communication, collateral, maintaining things on intranet or web or websites. So product marketing, creates the MRD, market requirement, product management, does the product requirement, PRD, functional requirements, product message collateral, marketing material, all of that is created by different people. But it's your responsibility to make sure that they are accessible very, very easily on intranet or website. If it is internal, then on intranet. If it is external, to be accessible by customers, for example, data sheets or messaging or seminars, webinars, white papers, all those collaterals need to be there on the website. All of that has to be managed really well, because tomorrow you may release a new version of the product, and if that new version is not reflected on the website or on intranet, that's a big no-no. That means you're failing in the function. Got to make sure. So that was a quick rundown onto the framework that I went through. So let's try to wrap up in here. So one of the things that we want to invite you is Hardware and EDA Product Management Bootcamp. It's an 8-week bootcamp course that we are offering from VLSI Deep Dive. It is going to really go into a lot more detail of these things with the right templates, checklists, or something that you can use on an ongoing basis. You can really master being the product manager of hardware and EDA products in 60 days. That's our promise to you. And there is a website link here. You can reserve your spot. We haven't fixed up exact dates and so on, but based on your interest, we will be following up. And Vikas will talk about this in subsequent after I complete. Actually, we can. I think the link is out there on the chat window. You may want to grab it. So, just in a nutshell, what we went through the framework. Let me summarize it. Market analysis, product design, build phase, launch phase, sell, that is in maturity phase, and EOL in decline phase, end of life. This is the phase that you go through. You perform different functions at different times. Depending on product stages, your functions will differ. But these are all the things that are needed to support the product lifecycle. So this is my last slide. So key takeaways is market is pervasive and products are complex. Right? And you can see the market is also growing very rapidly, and it runs in billions and trillions. Product manager plays a pivotal role, key role, right? The central role in product launches and product maintenance. And product lifecycle demands different strategies depending on market analysis or launch or mature phases. You have different demands on the role, but you can step up to be a good product manager. It's something that you can do, and I hope I gave some clarity today, and Bootcamp will give you a lot more. With that, let me hand it over back to Vikas.
Thanks a lot, Ramesh, for the webinar. So, as Ramesh mentioned, we'll be launching this bootcamp, we're tentatively planning it around February. It will be a cohort. We are expecting to start with 20 to 25 people. The link has been shared. I will also be sending to the people who joined and people who registered for this. I'll be sending a survey for the webinar. I'll also send the link within that so that you can see more information. This is going to be hands-on, covering all the frameworks, starting from initialization of the product to basically end of life of the product. What are the steps you will go through? There'll be exercises there which will make you think like a real product management person, and there'll be some exercises as Ramesh was talking about for being a manager. There are some things you have to let go. There'll be some exercises related to that as well. So it will be a wholesome product management bootcamp. as in before you start and after, as in once you go through this bootcamp, you'll really see a lot of difference in terms of how you do things. If you're a new product management person, or you're a person who is in R&D who wants to transition to product management, or if you are an FAE, or if you are doing sales, probably you want to go into product management, this is the right set of exercises and course which will build you a product you can build into a product management career. So we'll be sharing the details on email as well. The link is already shared in the chat window. Thanks everyone for joining this session. We'll, as you know, stay updated with our webinars by following our LinkedIn page or YouTube website, and you'll stay updated with respect to the new webinars and courses which are coming up on our website. You want to thank Ramesh again for introducing us to the product management, especially in EDA and hardware. One more thing before I go, as in there are a lot of product management courses out there. But mostly focus on the software side, more like what you'll do at Facebook, what you'll do maybe in Indian context at Swiggy. This is only one of the course which purely focuses on what is our semiconductor industry, EDA and hardware. And Ramesh has 3 decades of experience working with products. I have more than 15 years of experience doing this. So we both, for the first time, are bringing this bootcamp out. This is our going to be first bootcamp. So it's an opportunity actually to be part of the first bootcamp, and which is probably going to change how people are going to do product management in our space. So thanks a lot again for joining in, and bye for now. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. And there may be some questions unanswered. Please feel free to send those questions to Vikas, and I'll be happy to answer them offline. Thank you.